Hi, my name is Myra Tanksley. I am a single, proud mother of a young man who is 25 years old and has high functioning autism. My son's name is Marquis. He's a victim of ongoing abuse, neglect, and exploitation for federal funds by a very corrupt, sick, wicked, evil, racist government system. I'm a victim as his mother in this too. For several years, my son has been separated from me, not because I've done anything, not because I have abused him or neglecting. In those situations, I do believe that, a parent shouldn't be around a child that they're not going to take care of and love properly and adequately. If they're going to abuse and neglect them, then they don't need to be with them. Or if they're in some type of dysfunctional situation. And that didn't happen in our case. I love my son very much. I am a Christian. I am a professional woman. I've been in registered nurse over 30 years now. But I happen to be a black mother and a mother that advocates, and I'm not intimidated by sick, racist people or, people that are very corrupt and evil and practice injustice. I love my son just like any other mother or father that loves their child, and I'm not going to turn my head. So I have 3 Facebook pages that I have that shows that I'm not full of hot air. I'm an evidence girl. If I say it, you better believe I have evidence. So I have 3 Facebook pages. The first one is the abuse and neglect of autistic Marquis Tanksley by the government. The second one is Justice for Autistic Marquis Tanksley. And the third one is the audio tapes of Marquis Tanksley, his suffering, abuse, and neglect. And since they can't say I'm ignorant or, a drug addict or alcoholic or, a whore and all that kind of stuff, they have tried to slander me with saying that I escalate my son. So I said, well, when my son is telling me things, he's venting to me, not because of me. And maybe if y'all didn't treat him like an animal, maybe he wouldn't be begging me to bring him back home and to get him out of the hellhole that you got him in. Maybe if you train your staff. But they will always say that. That's why he's venting to me, not because of me. And, if I was treated like an animal and, abused and neglected and traumatized and terrorized, I tell my mother about it too. So, and then I said, well, when these white individuals with autism, when they have, meltdowns or physical or verbal aggression, I doubt if they're telling the white parents or the, white moms or white dads, hey, you're escalating your son and daughter. So, when they're at home having meltdowns, I doubt, I'm going to say that again, and that's why I say, they're racist, because black people are treated differently in this country than white people. And the problem with America is that they're in denial. And when a person's in denial, they cannot accept the truth. Even if there's evidence, they won't acknowledge the truth. And not all white people are in denial about racism. That's why you got some of them out there marching, because they can admit that, America's done had this terrible problem since 1776 about racism, how people are treated according to race. And then there's other, isms. You have it in gender, you have it in, religious preferences. But racism has always been a very, 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 very terrible illness that this country has had. And a lot of people are in denial about it. But I, as a Christian, you cannot fool God. And my son has suffered, and he's suffering not because he deserves it. He's not being punished by God. Marquis hasn't done anything. And, and I haven't. I haven't done anything to these people. But you don't have to be a terrible person for something or someone that's very evil, very wicked, to do you wrong. Look how they treated Jesus. Here he was, God in the flesh. he was actually without sin. The Bible said he was numbered with transgressors. I mean, he was executed in between two bandits or thieves or robbers. And so, just because somebody treats you wicked and treats you, like you're an animal, don't mean you deserve it. They took my guardianship away from my son. And it didn't mean that I actually did anything wrong. Like I said earlier, I don't abuse, I don't neglect my son. I love him just as much as any other parent that loved their child. But they thought that it'd probably be the best thing in their interest to get my guardianship. Because anything happens to Marquis, they don't have to tell me. They don't, anything, if he, ends up in the hospital or, gets an injury or something, they don't have to call me and ask for my permission or tell me about treatment or anything. So that helps them. So they got some wicked, racist, unfit, lying, I'm going to call her Flyer, that they have appointed as his limited guardian. And she don't care nothing about my son because she has no emotional attachment to him. That's not her child. All she serves as is a person that when they need a consent or a signature or something like that, then that's what she's there for. And it's a shame because she gets his SSI money while he lives in poverty. And my son is in like one of those, I call them 10-step Section 8 townhomes, because when you walk in one door, you take 10 steps and you're at the next door. Like if you walk in the front door, you take 10 steps, you're going to be at the back door. Or back door, you take 10 steps, you're at the front door. And it's in a terrible, terrible neighborhood. And the state of Ohio operates it. And the neighborhood's so bad, they had to erect a black metal gate around it. That's how bad the neighborhood is. It's surrounded by dirty alleys. And that's where he's been living. And they have not allowed me to see him in over 3 years. Because they know I'm an evidence girl. And I'm not intimidated by sick, racist people. Because I know God's got this. And it'll be God that has to bring my son back home. And for a while, they didn't let me talk to him because they know Marquis could tell me things. And I said, Lord, I know you're going to bring him back home, but I just want to hear his voice. And I want him to hear his mother's voice. And God made them allow him to call me. Because if my son don't call me, it's not because he don't want to. It's because they won't let him. And he hasn't been able to call me in probably it's been about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. But before that, he hadn't called me in over a year. They wouldn't let him call me in over a year. But I said, I just want to hear his voice. I miss him so much. And if I didn't have Jesus, I probably wouldn't have kept it together. But Jesus said, I got this thing. He said, they might stop you right now. He said, because I'm going to bring him back home from seeing him. But they can't limit my power. I'm with your son. He ain't done nothing wrong. He ain't going through this thing because I think he deserves it or anything like that. He said, but I'm going to have this thing the way I want it. And he says, when I bust this thing open, because he said, you got it on Facebook. He said, but when I bust this thing wide open, you need to pray for him. Because when I bust it open, I'll bust it open. He said, but they don't limit my power. I'm with your son. And the day that I already have set, because God has his own appointed time for everything. His timing is not our timing. His ways are not our ways. But he still does things at his own appointed time. And he said, I got the day I already got to handle. And when it's time, the date for him to come home, you're going to be right over there. And they're going to see it too. The whole world going to see it. The day that he's supposed to come home, you're going to be over there to pick him up. And I think as a Christian, or as Christians, if anybody else that's a Christian that is listening to this, we need to remember that God that we serve, God has his own appointed time for everything. And he said, and I'll deal with these people. Vengeance is mine, I will repay. Because God, when you hate people, that offends God. And injustice is all through the Bible. I done read the Bible 4 times straight, all the way through. And it's just as big a sin as any other sin. And God even says these people exist. And when he talks about injustice in the Bible, They're talking about people that work in the court system. I call it the illegal system. But that's what he's talking about. He ain't talking about the average Joe on the street. He's talking about judges and these lawyers and, court investigators and clerks and social workers. They're all in it together. That's why corruption is so devastating when you got a whole army of people that are evil and wicked, and they make their living, by cheating people out of their rights. And there's a scripture in Proverbs. I mean, it's all throughout the Bible where God decries and speaks out against injustice. And he is very angry about it, and he's going to, put it down for what it is. But that's who he's talking about. You're not talking about the average Joe on the street. So if God says these people exist, that's enough for me. And then another thing that I think people forget, even the ones that might go to church every Sunday, you can't sit up there and mistreat people and think you're going to go to heaven, or hate a whole group of people or a whole race of people. That's the second greatest command besides the first one, which is loving God with all your heart, mind, soul, and body. But he also says the second one is like it. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. People are going to have to answer to that. You can't just mistreat people. And I don't care if you go to church every Sunday, you're going to get left behind. You're going to head down below. You cannot mistreat people because it offends God. And even Jesus said that he was going to say to people, because people will say, well, when did we not help you when you were hungry or sick or needed clothes? He said, when you did it to the least of my burden, you did it to me. And he's also going to tell people, people say, when did we help you, Lord? When did we ever feed you when you were hungry, or gave you clothes, or visit you when you're sick? He said, when you did it to the least, you did it to me. So people are going to be held accountable for the way they have treated other people. And these people that work in this court system, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, it could really, and I don't judge anybody. I just go by what the Bible tells me, what I read in the Bible. And God is not happy when you mistreat people. And it could be based on race. It could be based on, a person's economic standing. It could be based on gender or whatever. You're going to have to answer to God for all the so-called Christians that work these 9 to 5 jobs Monday through Friday, and they're caught up and work for a system that cheat people out of their rights and oppress people and mistreat people, according to their race and other factors. You're going to have to answer to God. And sometimes he'll get you in this life. So what I'm doing, I am adding audio tapes to my third page, which is called the audio tapes. Marquis Tainsley is suffering abuse and neglect. Because I said my son can speak for itself. But their fantasy has always been to keep me and Marquis apart. They don't like him telling me things, and they know I collect evidence. Plus, they have no respect for the black family in this country. That's been that way since 1776. So, they had no problems trying to keep me and Marquis apart. So, they, like I said, they always say, well, I exculpate my son. I said, well, that's good. Because you're never, because my son, he adores me. He loves his mom, and this mom loves her son. And I said, you're never going to hear Marquis say, Mom, I hate you, or get on out of here. Of course, he's angry. He's upset because they're traumatizing and restraining and assaulting him and abusing him. And, of course, he misses me and he loves me because I take my son and I take them too. And I said, but they ain't got to speak for Marquis because I got, recordings of him expressing how he feels. I said the whole world can hear it from Marquis's mouth. In his own words, he'll tell you how he feels or what he's feeling. And it's hard for me to go through these tapes because I'm reliving it, because I said no parent that love their child would want to go in there, especially if they're disabled, and see their child the way I've seen my son. The signs of abuse and neglect. Or actually hear him tell you that I've been beaten and seeing emotional pain the physical pain, them crying and blurting out and yelling and being traumatized, you know, and hiding in the closet and covering herself up when you walk in there, already covered now. He would already have himself covered, trying to, you know, filter out the environment and the abusive staff. And no parent would want to come in there and see and hear the things that I've heard my son tell me. You just wouldn't want to do it. So on this tape, it's actually, Marquis is not on this tape. It's actually me receiving calls about him being restrained, me advocating for him, talking to, there was a terrible social worker over at Columbus Developmental Center here in Columbus, Ohio. And it's an ICF MR facility, an intermediate care facility for the mentally retarded. And she was a social worker. So I had a meeting with her, and it been a terrible, the current superintendent is a very corrupt, terrible piece of trash by the name of Rob Capaldi, that was in denial about my son being abused and neglected. Wasn't going to accept it. Was asking me to give him the tape. I said, well, the tape is over there with Disability Rights Ohio. They didn't do anything because it was state facility. I said, but I gave y'all a written statement. Then the idiot told me that after he listened to it, it didn't prove anything. I said, well, yeah, it did. It proved that that thug hit my son in the chest because I'd seen it. You know, and God had me placed where the thug couldn't see me, but I could see him. God will do supernatural things like that. But don't expect for nobody that's not a Christian to understand it. But you could hear Marquis scream. You could hear me on there. You could hear the thug say, I didn't hit him. I punched him in the chest. I mean, he said, I didn't hit him. I grabbed him by the shirt, which is the same thing as assault to me. But he wasn't going to admit that he punched Marquis in the chest. He said, no, I grabbed him by the shirt. And like I said, you could hear him say that. You could hear me say, oh, you hit him. You could hear Marquis scream. And that is actually on, which page is that? I think it's on my abuse and neglect page, but I also got a YouTube channel that I upload these audio videos to. And so you're going to be able to go to my YouTube channel under Myra Tanksley, and you'll be able to, I'm getting a little hoarse, so I apologize for that, but you'll be able to actually hear that whole audio recording. And it's not a videotape, because when it happened, it was a little dark, but he walked right up to my son, punched him in the chest. And the Lord had to just, Myra, I got this. I said, oh, they're going to, because after he walked up to him and punched him in the chest, he grabbed him by his shirt and threw him in the state of Ohio van. And there was 3 other co-workers that didn't say a word, because it's a code of silence, you know. You want to keep your job, you better not report abuse. They all abused those residents over there. At least they did my son. And I said, oh, because the guy didn't know I was there. I said, oh, they're going to abuse, they're going to beat him. And Jesus said, no, I'm still in charge. He said, but take that and use that. He said, but I'm not going to let them beat him. And that happened December 1st, 2012. So on this tape, it's from like December 11th, December 12th, and December 13th. And on December 11th, I received a call about Marquis being restrained. An evil, wicked, racist, corrupt psychiatrist that worked for the state of Ohio named Dr. William Bates. He called and left a message saying they could put Marquis on some Thorazine, because he was on a small amount and he was taken off of it because it was making him agitated. But they still got him on that. And they got him on the maximum dosage. The evil attorney by the name of Aaron Sanford, who's the limited guardian, she's the one that consents for them to keep Marquis on all that psych med. Then they put him on lithium. It's so much. And that made him blow up and made him gain a whole lot of unhealthy weight. And then he's on didnt. And he should have been off of Thorazine a long time ago. But they would either blame me for his behaviors or blame Marquis, because nobody over there knew anything about autism. And they still don't. He's out in the community now being abused and neglected by the home DD staff. So this idiot called and wanted to see if he could put Marquis on some Thorazine. And they don't even give Thorazine to true mentally ill people. Because my son doesn't have a psychiatric disorder. He's just autistic, and they just always throw him in sensory overload and traumatizing, terrorizing morning, noon, and night. So then there's me calling him back about the Thorazine and asking, can we discuss other medication? Then I'm calling Eric Korvath, which was a corrupt probate court investigator, and telling him about CDC not letting me visit Marquis for several days and blocking visits and phone calls. And then a guy named Matt calling me and telling me that Marquis was restrained. And then there's a call from Bill on December 13th, 2012, saying that Marquis was restrained for 4 minutes. And then there's an explosive, it's not the whole meeting, but I had a meeting with Rob Capaldi, Dr. Bates, and Heidi Hughes. And there were some other people there because they wanted to put him on meds. And I was telling them, I said, well, that's not always the answer. You talking about you want to be safe. How about keeping him safe from your staff? I just got through seeing staff, punch my son in the chest. And I said, last time he was there, a resident came up, a white MR resident, mentally retarded resident. But I think Danny was high functioning. And he was middle-aged. Told me that he seen one of the staff members throw Marquis down on the floor and punched him in the head. I said, how about that? Because I don't like hypocrisy. I said, you don't be a hypocrite with me. So it's very explosive because I was letting them hear what they needed to hear. And all they did was deny it. They're not going to admit, because that's their culture. There's a code of silence. They abuse and neglect residents. They let the direct staff do it, all for federal funds. Nobody's going to admit that it happens. And like I said, you can have the evidence and they're not going to admit it. So anyway, I'm going to get ready to play this because this is 25 minutes long. Usually these snippets that I have of Marquis, so even me talking to the staff and advocating for him, because I decided, I said, I'm going to put myself on this too, on that page, to let people hear how I had to advocate and talk to staff about and report all the things my son was going through, what I was seeing, what Marquis would tell me. And like I said, all they did was deny it. And then try to keep me away and try to push me out because they didn't want me to see all the things that was going on or hear what Marquis was telling me. So, I'm going to go ahead and play this because I don't really have that much time. I only got 60 minutes, and this is about 25, a little bit over 25 minutes. But I haven't been able or been allowed, or me and my son, Erin Sanford, has not allowed. She works with the Nye Law Group, but she's a racist, wicked, lying, because she lied on me 3 times. Got the evidence. Nobody's going to send me a letter and say, oh, cease and desist, you're slandering us, because it ain't slander when it's true. And I think they got to know how I do it. If I say it, there's evidence. And she lied on me 3 times. And I got her on tape. And I got the tapes to prove what a liar she is. I said, she needs to be disbarred for being a liar and attorney. I said, of all the professions, and you got a lying attorney. I said, it's just, disgusting. But anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and play this. Like I said, it's over 25 minutes long. And you could go to the YouTube channel. It'll be uploaded there. Then you go to the audio tape channel. If you go to the or audio tape page on Facebook, if you go to the other pages on Facebook, I always tell people, I say, make sure you start from the beginning. When I first created the pages, and then you'll see the evidence. Because that's the main reason why they don't want me to have contact with Marquis. Because they know that I'm exposing them. And they know Marquis could tell me things. Like he could tell me if they hurt him, if they move him in another location, all that kind of stuff. He's still got some deficits, you know. But he can, and it just seems like he's getting smarter and smarter. But God's got this. And God said, you just pray for him. Just because they need prayer. He said, because when I bust this thing wide open, I'm going to bust it open. And he said, you know, they're not going to keep him no longer than I say or allow them to keep him. He said, because when it's time for him to come home, he coming home. And you don't want God to have to move you out of the way or for him to be angry with you. Because he was so angry with a Jewish attorney that was very evil, corrupt, and very arrogant. Because God hates pride. This man was very arrogant. And the Lord took him off this planet and made sure I found out about it by making me get a newspaper in Walmart. Because I don't, you know, get the newspaper at home. I don't subscribe to it. And the Lord turned me around, made me go back to that table where a man was, you know, trying to get people to sign up for the newspaper. I never did sign up, but he did give me the paper. Took it home. There was that man's name at the top of the list. And Jesus said, vengeance is mine, I will repay. And he said, this is to warn his, you know, his friends or colleagues, whatever you want to call them, in the system. But people think just because God, they haven't seen nothing, that God is not paying attention. God has his own set time when he does things. It could take years sometime. And he's got his own way when he does things or how he's going to do it. But just because it ain't happened yet don't mean it ain't going to happen. It's just that, like the rapture. The rapture is going to happen. One day, you know, we're going to be caught up. But just because it ain't happened yet don't mean it's not going to happen. It just means the day hasn't came yet. And that's the situation with me and my son. He said, because I'm with him, I'm going to keep him. He said, because I got a destiny for his life and your life. And he said, but that day that I got set for him to come home, he going to come home. They're not going to be able to stop, because you cannot limit God's power. And he's on me and Marquis' side. Like I said, my son ain't going through what he's going through because he done anything wrong or because he deserves it. Not as far as Jesus is concerned. And Jesus is God in the flesh. So when I say Jesus, I'm talking about God. God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit are one and equal. But that's what the Lord told me. He said, I'm with him. He said, and I will deal with these people for the way they have treated your son and you. He said, because I know a mother's love. He said, I watched my mother cry at the foot of my cross, and I had to comfort her. He said, but, you know, I'm going to take care of this situation. So it's 25 minutes long. I apologize because it's off of a micro cassette and it's kind of grainy. It's not that clear. Pretty soon I'll be uploading recordings from the smartphone. And voice recorders on smartphones are a lot clearer, but this is a micro cassette. And I got all the way up to the last time my son called me. Because I vow I'm going to put these audio tapes out here. So Marquis, I love you. They won't let him talk to me, you know, around holidays or birthdays. Happy Thanksgiving to you. I put it on my Facebook page. I said, because I ain't going to walk away and give up on my son or on God. I'm just not going to walk away. I said, these people got to be pure scum to think I'm going to walk away and just, you know, give up. And neither is he, because he loves his mom. And I reminded him last time I talked to him how much I love him. And I'm waiting for him, how much Jesus loves him. And to look forward to being back home. I said, because God will bring you back home. He'll be the one that has to do it. But that's the reason why I don't do any pledge allegiance. I said, because I can't stand up and say no life liberty and pursuit of happiness and justice for all. And like I say, he can't even see his own mother. A loving, supportive, professional mother. But God will take care of it. He'll have to be the one, because there's situations that only God can do and put down. And this is a whole army full of wicked, evil, racist, scum. You know, from John Kasich, Mike DeWine, on down. And God has to put it down. And, you know, just because somebody's in office don't mean God can't deal with you. Mike DeWine just won governor of Ohio. God might decide to spike his booty while he's governor. But God is a just God. He is a God that will take care of business and give you justice when nobody else or nothing else can. So, I'm getting hoarse here, so I had to apologize. And I'm going to go ahead and play this. So, this is, like I said, Marquis is not on here. It's a couple phone calls from CDC saying Marquis was restrained. Me trying to call the corrupt Probate Court of Franklin County, Ohio. Court investigator. His name was Eric Korvath. And telling him about CDC blocking visits and calls. Then in a meeting, me just letting them know how, you know, Marquis has been, you know, abused and neglected by their staff while they turn their head and deny it. Rob Capaldi was telling me they can't restrict staff. And I asked him, was Rochelle, Matt, and T. John still working with my son? And he said, well, we asked Rochelle not to work with Marquis for a little while. I said, a little while? Now, Rochelle was the one that punched you in the chest and grabbed him by the shirt and threw him in a state of Ohio van, while TJ and T. John and Matt held Marquis by the arms. Heidi tells me we don't want Marquis to be here. I said, I know you don't. That'll give you a right to let your staff abuse. And then the Dr. William J. Bates, he's a psychiatrist here in that works at CDC. He's the corrupt psychiatrist that when they illegally committed Marquis over there, because you have to be moderately retarded to be, you know, illegally committed over to CDC. Like I said, he came out in 2015. He's no longer there. He's in the community being abused and neglected and exploited for federal funds. But him and another doctor went to court and filled out a form for forced medications, but they never did. And all of that's on the justice page. You can see the form that they filled out, that they did not put Marquis's medications that they wanted to. They didn't list the medications that they wanted to force on my son on the paper. And don't you know the judge still signed it and ordered it? The magistrate, they still said they could force any medications on him, even though the medications weren't listed. Go to the justice page. You had to start from the beginning on the justice page and the abuse and neglect page, and you'll see it. But it's on the justice page where you can see how these people are so corrupt. And I mean, they're just pure low-life scum, how they abuse their power and take documents and write all kind of, you know, false, fraudulent motions. And, oh, it's just a mess. It's just a mess. But, and it's a lot. I can't get it all in. I will run out of time. So just go to my pages and check out things, the YouTube. But I got to play this tape. So here it is. And like I said, I apologize for it to be grainy because it's on a micro cassette. So here we go.
Where I'm at, as close as our body.
Marquis was put in restraints for 9 minutes. That is the psychiatrist, Dr. Bates, calling, asking me to put Marquis on some Thorazine. Me calling Bates back and telling him the doctor had already taken Marquis off of Thorazine and called me and discuss. And I called him back a second time and left the same message. I was telling why I believe Marquis was distressed, missing his mom and being abused and neglected. Me calling Eric Korvath, Probate Court investigator, and leaving a message. Who did nothing. He didn't help at all. Just turned his head. Another call about Marquis being restrained. And I would just leave them on my voicemail so I can have a record of them. And it sounded like Marquis probably was an overload. They triggering. They didn't know anything about his triggers until I gave him a list, and they still didn't know how to work with him after I gave him a list of his triggers. This is the meeting with all those idiots over there. Didn't want to talk about the staff abusing and assaulting my son. They just want to talk about how much meds they could put him on, try to make him a zombie. Instead of trying to manage, the environment and stop triggering and put him in sensory overload. So Rasham, who punched Marquis in the chest, they just asked him not to work with Marquis for a while. Disability Rights have the tape. And they didn't do anything. I gave the tape to them. Heidi said they didn't want Marquis to be there. But it's Franklin County Board of DD that lied on Marquis to get him there. Me confronting Heidi and them about lying on me to probate court with David Belinky. They couldn't do an evaluation on Marquis because they wouldn't allow me to help Marquis. Sick, evil, filthy, racist, wicked, corrupt people that work for the state of Ohio government. So there you have it. And that's not all of the tape, but it's just some of the explosive stuff. And I had plenty of conversations like that over the years, advocating for my son. That's what I had to deal with, me and my son. Corrupt, filthy, evil, racist, wicked, lying scum that happen to have government jobs. And thank you for listening. I love you, Marquis, and so does Jesus.